But that's not the only time Krishna has spoken this philosophy. He comes, Asambhavami Yuge Yuge, in every millennium, millennium after millennium, and he teaches this same philosophy. Actually, in the 4th chapter of the Gita, Krishna tells Arjuna how he explained this science of bhakti yoga to the sun god Vivaswan millions of years ago, which Arjuna found somewhat astonishing. And he said, how can that be? We are contemporaries. This was taking place around 3000 BC. We are contemporaries, we're the same age. And the sun god has been around for a really long time. How is it that you instructed him? I don't remember that. I didn't see that. And then Krishna says to Arjuna that many, many births, both you and I have passed. And I can remember all these incidences, but you cannot. So that is the case, that we are not these bodies. We are eternal spirit souls. And we have experienced many, many, many lifetimes, billions of lifetimes in this material world, all of them not in the human form of life, unfortunately. Sometimes we are demigods, sometimes we are a dog, Prabhupada says. And there are so many species of life. According to one's activities, one's karma, one can take birth in various species of life. But the human form of life is very special, even though we don't remember our previous births, although occasionally that happens. Very rare. It is a very rare occurrence. It's called Jati Smar, one who remembers his previous birth. Such a person is Maharaj Bharata, who is a great saintly king in millions of years ago. And India is now named Bharata after him. So you all may be familiar with the Mahabharata. It's the whole story of Krishna and the Pandavas, and the Bhagavad Gita is one small chapter in the Mahabharata. And that means the greater India, which is named after Maharaj Bharata, a great devotee. And he had the occasion to become attached to a deer while he was practicing self-realization in the forest, and he actually took his next birth as a deer. But he remembered his previous life, and therefore he did not want to fall into illusion again. So he was not hanging out with the other deer, performing their frolicking activities and grazing on leaves and things in the forest. And then he took another birth as a human being, Jadabharata, who was a great self-realized devotee. And again, he remembered his previous births and what had thrown him off the path of self-realization. And he was one of the 100 sons of Lord Rishabhadev, who is one of the many incarnations of Krishna who appear Sambhavami Yuge Yuge, a millennium after millennium. And Lord Rishabhadev, he decided to instruct his 100 sons, of whom Maharaj Bharata was the first, the most prominent son, in the science of self-realization. And then there were 9 other sons who later became famous as the Navayogendras, great sages, great self-realized devotees, who appear in the 11th canto of the Srimad Bhagavatam and give their instructions to a king known as Maharaj Nimi. Very nice account. So Lord Rishabhadev, his teachings appear in the 5th canto, 5th chapter of the Srimad Bhagavatam. And they are so classic and so full of important philosophical points and realizations things that devotees constantly discuss and refer to and think about, such salient points in the science of self-realization. Now, there's a discussion between Krishna and his cousin brother Uddhava in the 11th canto, known as the Uddhava Gita, where Krishna tells Uddhava that I'm not interested in fruitive activities. I'm not interested in mystic yoga. I'm not interested in impersonal philosophy or speculation. He says, I'm interested in topics of self-realization, especially those which are discussed amongst my devotees. So the teachings of Lord Rishabhadev fall into this category in so many ways. So we're going to read 4 of these verses and discuss them as we go. The first verse of the 5th chapter of the 5th canto is that this chapter is entitled The Teachings of Lord Rishabhadev to His Sons. And these are very important teachings, and they really get to the heart of the matter of self-realization. So we'll read the Sanskrit. Rishabha ubacha nayam deho deham deha bhajam niloke kastan kaman arhate vid bhujam ye tapo divyam putakayena shutmam sujyad yashmad brahma sokyam tvanantam. Lord Rishabhadev told his sons, my dear boys, of all living entities who have accepted material bodies in this world, one who has been awarded this human form, that's all of us, should not work hard day and night simply for sense gratification, which is available even for the dogs and the hogs that eat stool. Gee, that's not a ringing endorsement of that animal life, is it? One should engage in penance and austerity to attain the divine position of devotional service. By such activity, one's heart is purified, and when one attains this position, he attains eternal blissful life, which is transcendental to material happiness and which continues forever. Now, most of you may be aware that the nature of material happiness does not continue forever, because the ability of this body to enjoy material happiness is extremely limited. And as Bhaktivinoda Thakur reminds us in one of his songs, speaking in the voice of Lord Chaitanya, why do you waste your lives just decorating uselessly this material body, which is temporary and full of various kinds of sufferings? Well, gee, you guys are being a little negative there, aren't you? About the suffering and everything? Well, you have to look at the facts. The facts are important. All living entities who have accepted these temporary material bodies are suffering in various ways. That's called, in some circles, the human condition. But the problem is that we don't like it very much. We do not like the sufferings of the mind, which can be very intense, the sufferings of the body, the sufferings that are visited upon us by other living beings, like elected officials, for example. I remember when I was a young devotee, we used to always say, like, the tax authorities, but now we go straight to the top about how sufferings can be visited upon people in general by elected officials. And there's also the sufferings visited upon us by the material nature, which can include the weather right here in Tucson, Arizona, as we have experienced recently. So there are so many types of sufferings, in Sanskrit called kleshas. So one cannot avoid or escape these sufferings. And then life is temporary. At a certain point, you can no longer stay in this body. You have to leave this body. That's called death. And no one likes to have that forced upon them. Why do we not like to have death forced upon us? Why are we not satisfied just taking birth, living a life full of suffering and then dying? Because we are eternal beings, eternal spirits. And we've accepted these temporary bodies, but our real business is not to try to enjoy of the senses, these bodies, as the aforementioned dogs and hogs that eat stool. But the real business is tapo divyam, putukayena satvam. My dear boys, Lord Rishabdev is exhorting his sons. Tapo divyam, perform divine austerities to attain devotional service. And that will lead you to eternal blissful life, which is completely transcendental to the sufferings of this world. And Brahma Sokyam, it's called, spiritual happiness. Brahma Sokyam Twanantam. It continues forever. It doesn't come to an end. So that's the first verse in this series. Let's go to the next verse. Text number 2, which states, Mahatsevam dwaram mahur vimuktas tamo dwaram joshita joshi shangam mahantaste samachita prashanta vimanyavak sudrida sadha bhoje. Translation given by His Divine Grace Srila Prabhupada. One can attain the path of liberation from material bondage only by rendering service to highly advanced spiritual personalities. These personalities are impersonalists and devotees. Whether one wants to merge into the Lord's existence or wants to associate with the personality of Godhead, one should render service to the Mahatmas. For those who are not interested in such activities, who associate with people fond of women and sex, the path to hell is wide open. The Mahatmas are equipoised. They do not see any difference between one living entity and another. They are very peaceful and are fully engaged in devotional service. They are devoid of anger and they work for the benefit of everyone. They do not behave in any abominable way. Such people are known as Mahatmas. Krishna refers also to the Mahatmas in Bhagavad Gita. Sa Mahatma Sudurlabha. One who knows me, such a great soul is very rare. So one who is on the highest platform of Krishna consciousness, always engaged in devotional service. Sa Mahatma Sudurlabha. Such a personality is very rarely seen in this world. And such a personality is Srila Prabhupada. We recently told the story about in 1976, Srila Prabhupada went to the first New York City Ratha Yatra down Fifth Avenue. He called it the most important street in the most important city in the world. And he was personally in attendance there in the Ratha Yatra. And one New York City cop, he saw Srila Prabhupada. And when he saw Prabhupada, he was astonished. And he turned to one of the devotees and he said, "That man, your leader, he's glowing." He saw Srila Prabhupada's effulgence, which not everyone could always see, but he saw it and he was astonished. So to see such a great personality is very rare, but he got the opportunity not only to see Srila Prabhupada, but to see that he was a transcendental spiritual personality who glowed unlike an ordinary person. An ordinary person, the glowing they have is from the LED light bulbs. But Prabhupada, and you see in the paintings of the great artists of the Renaissance, whenever they paint Jesus Christ or other spiritual personalities, you always see a halo, a glow around them. That's called the transcendental effulgence. So this has been known in history that such a thing exists. But Srila Prabhupada exhibited that even to a cynical New York City cop. Very wonderful story. So the next verse, the very powerful verse that I'm going to read is text number 4. Nunam pramata kudute vikarma yad indriya pritya apranoti nasado manye yata atmanoyam asana bikleshada asadeha. When a person considers sense gratification the aim of life, who considers sense gratification the aim of life? The whole world. Everybody. Practically down to the last man, woman, and child. He certainly becomes mad after materialistic living and engages in all kinds of sinful activity. Yep, that sounds like modern society to me. He does not know that due to his past misdeeds, he has already received a body, which, although temporary, is the cause of his misery. Actually, the living entity should not have taken on a material body. But he has been awarded the material body for sense gratification. Therefore, I think it not befitting an intelligent man to involve himself again in the activities of sense gratification, by which he perpetually gets material bodies one after another. So there you have it. This is what's happening to us. This is how we've arrived in this body. Here in some of us in the 20th century and some of us in the 21st century. This is how we've come to the human form of life. And thus we are suffering. And especially when we engage in sense gratification, then we become mad. We become mad after sense gratification. You want an example of the madness of someone absorbed in sense gratification? It's like practically every action movie is an example of that. People are vying to enjoy, to exploit so many, super criminals and superheroes, and this is all madness. They're mad after materialistic living, but they don't know that that's the problem, and that's what's furthering their entanglement within the Lord's illusory energy, this cosmic manifestation, this universe we live in. Actually, there are many universes. We live in one of the rather smaller universes, according to Vedic understanding. But there are many millions and billions and untold numbers of universes. And they're all filled with living entities just like us, who are like mad. When someone becomes mad and everyone else is like, whoa, watch out, they could do anything crazy. We see such people on 4th Avenue. We see such people on 1st Avenue. We see they're everywhere. They're in the White House. They're mad. They consider sense gratification the aim of life. But Lord Rishabhdev is teaching us, Nasadhu manye yata atmanoyam. I think it not befitting an intelligent person to again engage themselves in this mad pursuit of sense pleasure to try to achieve temporary happiness. Later on in the 7th canto of the Bhagavatam, Prahlad Maharaj, at the time only 5 years old, said a similar thing about people engaging in the life of madness. Nataividhu swarta gatim hi Vishnum. They don't know that the ultimate goal of life is to worship God. Durashya ye bahirarti maneha. That they think, maninaha means to think, that durashya ye bahir, that external activities are the real business to try to enjoy. And thus, yata andantire upaniyamanas, just like a blind person being led by another blind person, they miss their right path and they fall into the ditch. So the blind leaders of human society, the great personalities, materialistic persons, they're blind and they're leading the people astray from the path of spiritual realization. And thus they fall into the ditch of the illusory material energy. Tepisha tantram urdhamni badha. Then they're bound up by the tight ropes of material nature, which are very tightly tying them and binding them, and they cannot escape. So Prahlad Maharaj, very intelligent. Same philosophy that Lord Rishabdev is presenting here. And then we'll go to one more verse, which is a verse that came up this morning in our daily Bhagavatam class. And this is the 5th verse of the 5th chapter, the teachings of Lord Rishabdev. Parabhavasthavadabodha jato yavan najigyasata atmatatvam yavat kriyastabaridam manobhai karmatmakam yena sharira bandhaha. As long as one does not inquire about the spiritual values of life, one is defeated and subjected to miseries arising from ignorance. Be it sinful or pious, karma has its resultant actions. If a person is engaged in any kind of karma, his mind is called karmatmaka, colored with fruitive activity. As long as the mind is impure, consciousness is unclear, and as long as one is absorbed in fruitive activity, he has to accept a material body. So fruitive activity means working in this world, performing activities in such a way as to try to enjoy the results of those activities. That's called karma, or fruitive activities. And it's further subdivided into different categories. And one of those is pious karma, good pious activity, which elevates one. By good karma, one can actually become elevated to the heavenly planets, which are places in the universe where the demigods live, and their conditions are far superior to anything we experience in this world. Even better than Sedona, even better than Hawaii. Although that's a sort of a semblance, perhaps, of what the heavenly planets might be like, Hawaii. But it's still, there's so many problems there. Again, it's temporary. And even in the heavenly planets, life is temporary. But by su-karma, by good karma, one can become elevated in the next life to achieving the heavenly planets. And then there's another karma, ku-karma, bad karma, or sometimes referred to as vi-karma. Vi-karma means forbidden activities, activities that are not sanctioned in the Vedas and lead one downward. So by vi-karma, one can go far down below the human form of life into the animal species and even further down than that. Prabhupada mentions in one place how someone may, a real estate developer may spend millions of dollars and build a big skyscraper building, and then he lives on the top floor of that building and he's enjoying like anything. But due to his attachment and his sinful activities, in his next life he may take birth as a cockroach in that building. Wow. Gee, spent all those millions of dollars, he built the building, and then became a cockroach in that building after a while. That's material existence. But devotional service is a whole different kettle of, not fish, in which one performs activities, devotional activities, for the pleasure of Krishna, And that is called akarma. Freedom from karma, freedom from reaction. Those are spiritual activities. And by those spiritual activities, as we heard earlier from Lord Rishabhdev, one can attain eternal blissful life, which is transcendental to any kind of paltry material happiness, which everyone is working so hard to try to get, and can continue on forever in eternal blissful life. And Krishna gives a very nice instruction in the 4th chapter of Bhagavad Gita, that one who knows the transcendental nature of my appearance and activities in this world, who understands fully my transcendental nature in truth, then that person does not take birth again in this material world, but returns to my eternal abode. So that is the Krishna consciousness movement. It's the place where we can practice devotional service, understand this amazing transcendental philosophy that Krishna has given us. Why is it so amazing? Why is it so transcendental? Well, because it's given by God. Who's a better philosopher than God? Who is richer than God? Who's more powerful than God? Who's more beautiful than God? Who knows more than God? These are opulences of the Lord that he has in full beyond any ordinary person, beyond any soul. All souls are expanded from God, but God is the reservoir. Therefore, in the Vedic language, it's explained, Nityo Nityanam Chaitanas Chaitananam Eko Bahunam Yovididati Kaman. There is one supreme eternal. Nitya means eternal. Nityo Nityanam. And there are many small eternals. That's us, the individual living entities. We're eternal, but God is the supreme eternal. And we're very small parts and parcels that share that quality of eternality and consciousness. So what is the difference between the supreme eternal, the supreme conscious being, and all us little eternal conscious beings? Eko bahunam yovididati kaman. That the one, Eko means one. All Indian people know that. Eka? Yes. Eko bahunam yovididati kaman. The one is fulfilling the desires and maintaining the many. And that is the difference. Therefore, in the biblical language, we say God is great. Well, his greatness is expanded unlimitedly, but the Vedas give us a very scientific and insightful, knowledgeable appreciation of what is the difference between God and ourselves, and what we can do to attain that eternal, spiritual, blissful position, which is what we all really want. That's what we're all really looking for. That spiritual happiness that never stops and is not interrupted by birth and death and the miseries of disease and old age and unsettled minds and unfulfilled desires. Okay, so we will stop here. Thank you very much for your kind attention. Briefly, would there be any question or comment? All right, very good. That means everyone agrees. Of course, you are all devotees. That's why we're presenting this wonderful transcendental philosophy, because the devotees always relish and appreciate the nectar of Krishna consciousness that is given by the teachings of Lord Rishabhdev and Lord Krishna and his great devotees like Prahlad Maharaj. All right, thank you very much. Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai.